we talk about like this idea of like, you know, setting foundations and like torch passing. But do you feel like there's a cutoff, the level of, I don't want to say activism or like, but student involvement within like students of color kind of like drops a little bit? And does that worry you? Like, how does that make you feel? Like,
I think a lot of people of color on our campus struggle with taking that first step. It's actually very sad that a lot of people who have graduated from this institution who are of color feel a lot of regret because of not being involved, not being able to get certain opportunities that they feel like they could have taken advantage of. And it's the question that is like, what is stopping Black students from having different experiences as our white peers at this institution? Like, what is that? Is it kind of the boundary we create for ourselves? Is it already there? Like, I feel like that's what I've been trying to figure out. Like, I talk to the Black students who are the incoming freshmen, and I'm like, hey, like, I'm trying to, you know, have them have a different start and a stronger finish than I'm having. And I'm a junior, I'm not even finished yet, but I'm like, how you start is how you finish. And a lot of people, unfortunately, what I've noticed is it's getting too late, to the point where they are in that moment where they're like, damn, I could have done this and I could have done that. And it's really sad, because I feel like it's just, I see it with too many graduates and Black students who are older than us who just feel that could have, would have, should have.
What I'd also say to that, I think there's a lot of responsibility on us who have gotten involved, you know, to seek out the freshman, to seek out the sophomore, who maybe is teetering on, I'm not sure if I still want to be here, or maybe I want to get involved in BSU. The way I got involved was because of the fact that, like, I realized, okay, this is a matter of necessity for me. When I was coming in, I'm coming from a predominantly white neighborhood. I see Quinnipiac, I'm like, okay, I've dealt with these demographics before. And it wasn't until I've gone through a whole year that I was like, oh, wait a second. That Black influence that I get every time, even though I'm living in a predominantly white community, I always come back home to a Black family. I have Black faces inside my house that understand exactly what I'm going through. And even though I have really nice friends that may be of other backgrounds, they can't relate to me in that way. And so, you know, sometimes the idea of necessity only comes until it's too late.
I think why some people or some students haven't made the impact yet is because they're not ready to take on what comes with it. I think sometimes it is tough to expect students to make certain paths for themselves, but sometimes you have to. But I think we do need to acknowledge that sometimes expecting that students come into these positions and kind of have to take on all the responsibilities when at the end of the day you're here as a student. Right. It's very tough, and it's not for the weak, truthfully.
You know, us all being like student leaders, like I feel like a lot of times it's like we're on the forefront of seeing statements from like institutions or just from like society at large. A lot of times I think what kind of frustrated a lot of students and like students don't really realize sometimes is we're not always fully in the loop of what's happening behind closed doors.
Right.
So a lot of times people like kind of outs their frustration towards like the administration or like the institutions without fully understanding the work that's going on behind closed doors. I know I've talked to you about it like 100 times, and I've definitely been a participant in that at the beginning of like, you know, becoming like socially active and involved and trying to like advocate for students. But just having like the ability to like actually get to work with like administrators and see the time and the deliberation and the work and the changing of policy, everything over and over kind of like opens your eyes to like, nah, it's not as easy as people seem. It's like a very intricate matter.
I feel like also, like, I know us as students, we see our peers who are always commenting on what's wrong. Like, and from someone who, like I said, my freshman year, I didn't want to participate in any organizations because I wanted to look from afar and see what I can critique and see what I can contribute. A lot of people keep a lot of their comments within their circle.
Right.
How do you expect for the administrators to know what's going on? And that's what's been happening. And I think it's unfair because it's easy to critique, but it's hard to give answers to the problems that you notice. And you ask them a question, well, what do you want to do? And they're like, I don't know. Well, next. Like, that's how I feel. Like, what is next? What is the next steps we as students want to take?
And so along those lines, President Olien, when you think about like leading the institution, right, and how everything, whether you like it or not, kind of comes back to you, like these two pandemics, the pandemic of COVID-19 and the pandemic of racism that people recently awakened to. What has that experience been like as the leader of this institution?
That's a big question. I think they're a bit different. One of them requires you to be pragmatic. There are some universities that can't open and won't survive, and so these are existential threats, though I've never doubted the capacity of Quinnipiac to get through this. But it required you to really be able to multitask, think system-wide, solve this problem and that problem at the same time, but it's a pragmatic issue. The other one is really one that calls on what you believe is just, is fair, is embedded in a history of centuries in society, and you have to ask yourself, what is it that in my world, where we are, that we can do to change things? You know, I wrote a very personal letter very shortly after George Floyd was killed. And for some people, it was too much. For some people, it wasn't enough. And that's where I say you have to go back to who you are and what you stand for and what you believe in, and then try to say, what is it that we can do in our own world to move the needle, to change things? And I think about that from, first of all, the perspective of that we're educating 10,000 future leaders of society. So how can we help them think about it? And secondly, how can we change ourselves? And that's why we put out the 10-point action plan. And there's no doubt that some of that 10-point action plan was influenced from discussions I had with you all, with students, with leaders. I mean, a lot of what Don impacted. Another thing that is a difficult one is, and it kind of relates to what you said, Dina, and that is, how often do you speak out? Unfortunately, there is evil, there is cruelty, there is tragedy that occurs all the time. And so how do you convey the fact that you care about every one of those without coming out every time and making a statement? And by the way, there are people that say, your job as a university professor and president, your job is not to tell me how to think, your job is not to tell me how to rectify social injustices. So again, you have to go back to your true north, your own personal true north, and what it is that moves the institution in the right way, in a consistent way, without appearing to be simply reacting to the winds of the moment. And it won't make everyone pleased all the time. It will not. What I hark back to is, what's my role as a person who can impact change in the institution and through the institution? Through the institution is through you.